Lesson 3: The controversy over slavery. Let's learn. Your learning goal: I can review the connection between Follow the Drinking Gourd and the Underground Railroad in the years leading up to the Civil War. I can compare and contrast the North and South in the years before the Civil War. I can demonstrate an understanding the word economy. I can write an entry in the Civil War Journal about the difference between North and South in the years leading up to the Civil War. Vocabulary words that you had are abolitionists, which are people who work to abolish or end slavery; agriculture, the science of producing crops; farming, cotton, soft white fibers that surround the seeds of a cotton plant; economy, the system in which people make, buy, sell, and trade items or their services; factories, buildings where goods are made. Let's explore. So you had followed the drinking gourd on page 2.1 of your activity book. You had the song. Let's listen to the lyrics of the song.
For over 200 years, until the mid-80s, which always pointed north to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. When the sun comes back and the frisk will call, follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. The riverbank will make a mighty good road. The dead trees show you the way. Left foot, back foot, traveling on. Follow the drinking gourd. The river ends between two hills. Follow the drinking gourd. There's another river on the other side. Follow the drinking gourd. Where the great big river meets the little river. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd. Slavery affected millions of people in the United States, and even today, our country is still impacted by the damage it caused. Some people use songs like Follow the Drinking Gourd to escape slavery. Many, however, never saw freedom. The system of slavery tore the United States apart for whole generations. People were born into slavery and raised their children in slavery, the cruel system continuing for hundreds of years. In 1861, the Civil War began between the northern states and the southern states. The war lasted 4 years, and at the end, slavery was made illegal in the country at last. Follow the drinking gourd. Follow the drinking gourd. For the old man is waiting to carry you to freedom. Follow.
All right, let's do a review of what you went over yesterday in Miss Finley's class. We're going to review the connection between Follow the Drinking Gourd and the Underground Railroad. This is what you should have been writing on your journal yesterday. What was the drinking gourd? It was the group of stars in the sky known as the Big Dipper. It was used by enslaved people running to their freedom. Why were the enslaved Africans told to follow the drinking gourd? Well, it pointed the way north, which is the direction enslaved people needed to go to reach northern states and eventually Canada to win their freedom. Why did enslaved Africans want to escape from the plantations of the South? They had a very harsh life where they were, where they were not free, and they wanted the freedom to live their lives. Why did the enslaved Africans want to escape from the plantations of the South? They had a very harsh life where they were not free, and they wanted the freedom to live their lives. What was the system of escape from the South to the North called? The system was called the Underground Railroad. Who were the conductors? They were the people like Harriet Tubman who led the enslaved people to freedom. Who were the passengers? The enslaved Africans who were seeking their freedom. What were stations? They were the places along the way where the conductors and passengers could rest and get food. So remember that the enslaved Africans attempting to gain their freedom would have to encode messages in songs. That way the plantation owners wouldn't know what they were doing. Controversy means an argument or disagreement that happens when people have differing opinions. Okay, let's go over some questions about what you read on yesterday, the controversy between the North and the South. What is the Mason-Dixon line? You have a map of the Mason-Dixon line where it shows it, showing it there. It's an imaginary line separating the North and the South. The border between Pennsylvania and Maryland. Point to the Mason-Dixon line on this map. Okay, now you're going to list some of the ways the North and the South are similar to one another in the years leading up to the Civil War. Think about what's the same as you're writing. And then I want you to think about the ways in which the North and the South were different from one another in the years leading up to the Civil War. So therefore you would think about what's different. Some things you may put is both were part of the United States, both had some type of farming. Differences may include the North's economy was based on manufacturing and factories, whereas the South economy was based on agriculture, meaning they grew crops. Many of the farms in the South were larger, and they supplied crops such as cotton, sugar, and tobacco. Slavery became generally illegal in many northern states, whereas it was not illegal in the South. Some people in the North became abolitionists and wanted to end slavery. What does the phrase tearing the country apart mean? What things did Harriet Tubman do that show she was an abolitionist? Abolitionist. She was a conductor on the Underground Railroad. She talked to people in the North to tell them why slavery should be abolished and how they could help. She worked with others who printed newspapers that were intended to convince political leaders that slavery was wrong. Who were the abolitionists? The abolitionists were people who worked to abolish or end slavery. Let's connect. On page 3.1, you will take notes about what you have learned about the North in the years leading up to the Civil War, and you report them on the side for the North. You'll put what you've learned about the South and put it on the side of the South. When you are done with this, in your Civil War journal, you will write an entry for the Civil War journal. Enter in your journal about the differences between the North and the South in the years leading up to the Civil War. Remember what we talked about earlier about some of those things that are different between the North and the South. North's economy was based on manufacturing and factories, whereas the South economy was based on agriculture because many of the farms in the South were larger and they supplied crops such as cotton, sugar, and tobacco. Remember, slavery became illegal in the North, whereas it was not illegal in the South, meaning it was legal in the South. And some people in the North became abolitionists and wanted to end slavery, whereas the South wanted to keep slaves. On page 3.2, you're going to draw your picture about the North and the South. Maybe you want to draw a state. Maybe you want to draw the Mason-Dixon line. Then you're going to write about how the North and the South were different. And that is the end of your activities for knowledge lesson 4. Knowledge lesson 3, excuse me.